Hi, everyone. So when it comes to the evaluation and observation process, I really think it needs to include all three types of evaluation. So diagnostic, formative, and summative. And it really needs to begin at the start of the school year. It should start with a meeting between the teacher and the evaluator. That diagnostic meeting should consist of goal setting. The goals can be based on what the teacher wants to improve on, and it should also be based on the evaluation criteria that will be used within that summative assessment. First initial meeting, then there should be a series of formative observations. And those observations should really have the purpose of giving the teacher feedback, because feedback is extremely important to improvement. Who should be doing the formative observations? I think there should be a mixture. According to our author in his 2006 text, Leading and Supervising Instruction, Darish says that ideally formative feedback would be provided by individuals not directly involved with final hire or fire decisions. Based on that, I think that some sort of master teacher program should be implemented to where other teachers are observing other teachers to give them feedback. Like for example, in my school, we have a group called the PLC facilitators, and we are in charge of providing professional development opportunities and planning those opportunities. It would make sense if we went through some sort of training to know how to observe people, to know how to use the observation tool, whatever that may be, and how to provide that feedback. Then we can also use that information when we plan our professional development opportunities. That gives the opportunity to teachers to get feedback in a non-threatening manner. However, I do think that the evaluator should be a part of that formative observation in some manner, as they are going to be the ones doing that formal summative evaluation at the end. I know personally as a teacher, I wouldn't want to go in blind to that final meeting without my evaluator having seen me teach at some point throughout that year. So I do think a mixture of both principals and teachers doing those formative observations is the most beneficial. And then finally, you have that summative evaluation, which most likely will take place near the end of the year. And I think the most important part with any of these evaluations, no matter if it's diagnostic, formative, or summative, is a meeting. You can observe, you can give written feedback, but that's not as valuable as sitting down and talking to the teacher. Those meetings can serve not only to kind of clear up any issues or not even issues, but just uncertainties, things that you had questions about, but it also gives the teacher an opportunity to kind of justify what they were doing. I mean, as an evaluator, you may only get to see a certain part of their teaching when they did something else later on that you just didn't get to see. So having that meeting and having the teacher be able to justify and be able to give insight into things and why they did certain things, I think is a very valuable part of that. And I think both parties in that summative meeting need to be flexible and willing to change their ideas on where they fall on that evaluation tool. When it comes to any observation, you're going to have issues with, I guess, bias is one way to say it. Any evaluator is going to have their own values, their own opinions, their own experiences that they're kind of making their judgments based off of. In order to kind of negate that as much as possible, I think it is important, one, to have a solid evaluation tool. Having a rubric that's been tested, having training is really important on that rubric, so that way, no matter who is using it, it's being used consistently is really important. And then also having that meeting to where you can kind of gain perspective on, again, why a teacher did something. And I don't think necessarily having different opinions is a bad thing. In fact, it's probably more beneficial, because as a teacher, you only have your own values, your own opinions, your own experiences to go off of. Learning from other people is a huge part of that. You may learn a new way of doing things that you wouldn't have thought of on your own, but that could be really effective. Measuring classroom effectiveness can be a bit tricky. I think the biggest thing when it comes to observations is looking for things that are actually observable. Having evidence is really important in any part of the evaluation or observation process. So I think the biggest thing to look for is engagement. And how do you look for engagement? I think it really relies on talking to students, having that conversation with them, asking them, do you know what's going on? Do you know what's expected of you? Do you know what you should be doing? Listening to their answers to that gives you a lot of insight into what they know about what they're doing in class. I mean, there's no better way to gauge engagement than to talk to the students and observe what they're doing and to know if they actually get the content. As walkthrough observations go that only last 2 to 5 minutes, I don't think they're necessarily bad or good. I really think it depends on the purpose of the walkthrough and depending on the goals of the teacher. So for example, if a teacher has a goal to give some sort of formative assessment like an exit slip at the end of each class period, that is definitely something that an administrator can observe in 2 to 5 minutes at the end of each class. However, if it's a goal that is going to take more than 2 to 5 minutes, that evaluator will need to come back and stay for a longer period of time. So I think, again, it just depends on the purpose behind the observation. I don't think it's good or bad or one's worse or better. I think it really should consist of a mixture, because I do think that those 2 to 5 minute walkthroughs do serve a purpose, at the very least in building a school culture. I think they can do a world of wonder for building a culture that is in a school that makes teachers comfortable with observation and comfortable with getting feedback. And any time where you can build that culture where teachers are comfortable with getting feedback and not only comfortable but understand how to use that feedback and then improve their teaching, then you're setting your school up for success and for being an effective school. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for listening.